MC Hammer is an iconic rapper, known for his legendary dance moves, and the hit You Can't Touch This. He is a 3-time Grammy Award winner, and he won 8 American Music Awards. He is also the first hip-hop artist to win a Billboard Diamond Award, which requires sales exceeding 10 million copies. He has received worldwide recognition for his choreography and videos, as well as his music, winning the prestigious International Album of the Year award. At the height of his career, he was worth a staggering $70 million, but it all went terribly wrong when he famously filed for bankruptcy in 1996. Watch out for more on MC Hammer's Net Worth 2020 and where he is today. Hammer, real name Stanley Kirk Burrell, is a West Coast rapper born and raised in Oakland, California. He grew up in a housing project and is the youngest of 6 siblings. His family struggled with so many mouths to feed and living in a 3-bedroom house. To make ends meet, the family would collect and sell stray baseballs at the Oakland Coliseum parking lot. Speaking of his childhood with Rolling Stone, Hammer said, "We were definitely poor. Welfare, government-aided apartment building, 3 bedrooms and 6 children living together at one time." For fun, Hammer would dance in the streets with his friends, emulating his idols such as James Brown. On one of these occasions, Hammer was spotted dancing outside the Oakland Coliseum by an Oakland athletics team owner, Charles Finley. He was just 11 at the time, doing the splits and really showing off his moves. Charles was impressed and got him a job at the clubhouse. Hammer performed while on the road with the team. Baseball player Reggie Jackson took credit for his nickname, saying, "I nicknamed him Hammer because he looked like baseball player Hank Aaron, whose nickname was The Hammer." After graduating from Clemens High School, Hammer joined the Navy. He was there for 3 years and honorably discharged. Soon after, he began pursuing his rap career. MC Hammer was popular in the 80s and early 90s. In the wake of Public Enemy, Eazy-E and Ice-T, Hammer's style was considered more pop than rap. His first album, Feel My Power, was released independently, which was not as easy back in the 80s. With no social media or even the internet, you had to grind hard, going all over, performing and physically selling your records to whoever was interested. He sold tapes from the back of his truck. Hammer actually got a $20,000 loan from 2 Oakland A baseball players. The album sold 60,000 copies as he got a distribution deal through City Hall Records. In his song, Let's Get It Started, Hammer declared he was second to none in relation to other rappers such as LL Cool J, DJ Run, and Dougie Fresh. It became a thing for him to call out East Coast rappers. His music gained popularity in the club circuit and was played in dance clubs. He would perform with a dance troupe and put on an elaborate show, especially for a rapper. He gained the interest of several major record labels and ended up signing with Capitol Records. An executive from the label saw him performing in one of his dance shows. Some of the other rappers would give him grief for dancing, saying that dancing wasn't exactly gangster. But, as MC Hammer pointed out, many of the most iconic dance moves have actually come from the hood, from gangsters, such as the crib walk. He said gangsters dance. He re-released his first album with some additional songs, and it went on to sell over 2 million copies. For his second album, Hammer adapted his style. "I decided the next album would be more musical," he said. The album sold 2 million copies. The third album, Please Hammer Don't Hurt 'Em, played into his notoriety for dissing other rappers. The breakout single for this album was You Can't Touch This. The song sampled Rick James's Super Freak. The single reached the top 10, and the album went to number 1. The album stayed at number 1 for a record-breaking 21 weeks. He followed the single up with Pray, which sampled Prince's song When Doves Cry. Hammer's first high-profile legal battle was with Rick James, who took him to court for copyright infringement. The case was settled out of court because Hammer agreed to credit James as a co-producer, giving him access to the millions made from the song. His third album, Too Legit to Quit, went 3 times platinum. The music video for the single, of the same name, reached the top 10 and featured a host of celebrities. It was ranked one of the most expensive videos ever made. MC Hammer went on to release several more studio albums, all ranging from moderate to much success. His most recent album was in 2009, so it's been a while since he's released one. In total, he has sold over 50 million records worldwide. In 1991, he earned his highest earnings to date, taking home more than $33 million. He had to deal with a $16 million lawsuit though, brought against him by a Christian recording artist who claimed Hammer stole the idea of the song Here Comes the Hammer. It was settled out of court for an undisclosed amount. By his 5th album, Hammer decided to become more gangster in his approach, trying to keep up with the change in hip-hop culture. Gone wore Hammer's pants, which were pretty classic. He didn't really use profanity in his music though. If he did, it was always very minor. But he still called out other rappers. Many of them criticised him over the years too. The album eventually went platinum, but the video for the song, Pumps and the Bumps, was banned from heavy rotation on MTV. Hammer, in Speedos, was considered inappropriate. His subsequent albums didn't sell that well, and rumours began to surface about him being in financial trouble. After his album Inside Out flopped, he was dropped from Giant Records. He was determined not to go out like Vanilla Ice, so he had a plan to revamp his career. He actually renounced gangster rap, but at the same time he joined Death Row Records. So fans were kind of confused, to say the least. But Suge and Hammer were friends before Death Row ever existed. They knew each other from the Oakland area and back in the 80s when Suge was a bodyguard for Bobby Brown and others. In a Davey D interview, Hammer said, "My decision to be part of the Death Row family came about because Suge Knight and I have a relationship that goes back all the way to 1987-88. This is an opportunity to clear a lot of things up by aligning myself with Suge and Death Row. When the head of the so-called hardest label in America calls you and says, 'I want you, Hammer, to put your music down on my label,' I knew that it was a good opportunity." Hammer was supposed to release the album Too Tight, which was a collaboration with Tupac Shakur. Tupac produced and wrote several songs on the album. Hammer said one day he walked into the studio at around 10 a.m. and people came up to him saying that Tupac had already done 3 songs for him. He was able to write and produce several songs at a time. Quality songs too, he said. He said he would hear Pac rapping Hammer style while producing the songs. The album was unreleased, but you can still find it online. Unconditional Love was written by Pac, and he features on the track. And the song Too Tight, which also features Pac and was written by him and produced by Johnny J, is also on the album. The demo Tupac recorded for Unconditional Love was released on his posthumous Greatest Hits album, and a video for the song was recorded. Hammer and Pac had completely different styles. It is believed the two worked very well together. Pac introduced Hammer to an edgier style of rapping, and Hammer gave Pac an opportunity to write music he himself couldn't perform because it would go against his gangster image. Speaking of the song Unconditional Love, Hammer said, "This song was given to me as a gift from the late Tupac Shakur. He told me this was a song about how true love is unconditional. He wanted me to rap it because it reflected what I stand for. The secret is, this is also what he stood for. We know that our Bible says that God's love is unconditional. Thank you, Tupac, for this beautiful spiritual song."
Watch my mama open up her arms and hug me, and I ain't worried about a damn thing because she still love me. In this game, it's lessons for your eyes to see. Though things change, the future is still inside of me. We must remember that tomorrow comes after the dark, so you will always be in my heart with unconditional love.
My guy.
Tupac wrote that and came and gave that to me and said, "I need you to do this for me because our people need this."
Sure.
Damn.
And so that was the kind of things that was happening in the studio at that time. Rest in peace, Pac.
Absolutely.
Unfortunately, Too Tight was never released, because of Tupac's death, and Suge was going in and out of jail at the time for various reasons. Hammer ended up leaving the label soon after Tupac's death. As for the so-called East Coast-West Coast battle, Hammer gave Tupac some advice. He said, "I'm from the old school. If I've got a problem with you, that's between me and you. It ain't me and my partners, and your partners. I don't need that East Coast-West Coast rivalry. I name names. It's me and you. If your geographical location is Virginia, then that's where you live. If I have a problem with such and such, I don't have a problem with your whole state." See, the East Coast-West Coast rivalry is a fallacy. Why? Because it's not even the whole East Coast. Everybody that somebody had a problem with basically lived in New York. So what about all the other states that exist on the East Coast? They had nothing to do with that. But once again, I have to say this. Many who represent the hip-hop generation, the hip-hop culture, they are unlearned people. And if they are learned, then they're playing games. They shouldn't do that. You know, we are smarter than that, as a culture and as a people. You know good and well there ain't no rivalry with the whole coast, especially if we narrow it down to who is who and who has a problem with who. Who is your problem with? And I'll say this very freely to Tupac. Man, in this so-called East Coast, West Coast, we're gonna have to narrow this down. You can't fight the whole coast. Personal battle is a personal battle. Name names. So other individuals not involved won't get involved and make it bigger, because it can get out of hand. You can't have the fans who love you and support you see a certain artist on the streets and on your behalf try to serve them. Another collaboration that didn't occur was a dance battle between Michael Jackson and Hammer. Hammer told a radio station that it was something they both agreed to, but sadly, it didn't happen. He also talked about how Michael Jackson would come up to the Bay Area and catch on to certain dance styles he would later incorporate into his shows. The most famous dance that Jackson got from the Bay Area was the robot. Hammer famously went bankrupt in the same year Tupac was killed. Despite his mega earnings from his earlier albums, he racked up a debt of $14 million. The first reason for the debt was believed to be his overspending. Cars, jets, a 12-acre home in Fremont, and a record company. He spent $30 million building his house in the hills from scratch. The 40,000 square foot mansion featured a bowling alley, Italian marble floors, 2 swimming pools, multiple tennis courts, a recording studio, and a 17-car garage and baseball diamond. After declaring bankruptcy, the property was eventually sold for $6.2 million, a fraction of what it was worth. Hammer was also notorious for having a huge entourage. He reportedly spent $500,000 a month on his entourage alone, at the peak of his fame, but he would soon reveal that it was much more than that. In an interview with Davey D, it became apparent that it wasn't all about luxury and living a lavish lifestyle. As someone who came from a disadvantaged background and escaped the streets, Hammer wanted to give back to his community and help others escape violence and poverty. He worked really hard to pull his homeboys away from the street life. This came with a whole lot of challenges. He essentially set up his own prison to work program. This is probably the real reason he went bankrupt. At one point, he admits that his payroll was over $1 million a month. Hammer said that some of these guys would end up dead or in jail for 30 plus years had he not intervened. So he offered them a job going on the road with him, and with salaries of around $40,000 a year. A lot of money back then. When asked if he regretted it, he said no, because he knows he saved some lives. But he said it was irresponsible to do this to the point of bankruptcy. He felt he represented black entrepreneurship in a bad light. His accountants warned him that he would go bankrupt if he didn't let these people go. But he decided to continue because they were relying on him. He was happy to see them move into middle-class neighbourhoods and escape the streets. The police and some of his enemies tried to undermine his efforts, spreading rumours about him buying a police department, a helicopter. He said there was a lot of corruption back then. Many of the officers were upset because he was providing opportunities for guys that they wanted to lock up. Remember, this is the same police department that Tupac sued after he was harassed and beaten up on the street by some officers who received a settlement out of court for this incident. Hammer ended up owing the IRS $800,000 in back taxes and penalties related to income from 1996 to 1997. It really seemed like Hammer tried to do some good. He even became a preacher the year after Park's death. He is the self-professed first ever Christian rapper. He has also been a TV host and a dance competition judge. He also dabbled in acting and producing and even had a cartoon. He is also the CEO of his own record label and executive producer of his own short-lived reality TV show, Hammer Time. He has worked hard to build himself up again and regain what he lost. As of 2020, his net worth is reported to be $2 million. This is according to Celebrity Net Worth. Hammer's heart is with Oakland. He works with food distribution charities in the local area and is quite vocal on social issues. Do you agree with what Hammer said about the East Coast-West Coast rivalry being a fallacy? And do you think he gave good advice to Tupac about it? And who do you think would have won the dance battle between Hammer and Michael Jackson? Thanks for watching. Rate, comment and subscribe for weekly videos. And don't forget to click the bell for more. And congratulations to the winner of the Amazon gift card giveaway, which is now closed.